The unimpressed observer. Have you ever met someone who seemed impossible to wow? You show them something you're excited about, and they just shrug. A stunning sunset gets a, "Yeah, it's okay." An impressive achievement earns a, "That's nice." It's not that they're trying to be rude, they genuinely don't feel what others feel. Most people assume these individuals are cynical, jaded, or simply negative. But the truth is far more interesting. People who are hard to impress don't see less in the world, they see differently. Their minds operate on a unique frequency, filtering experiences through a lens that most of us never develop. Understanding this mindset isn't just about decoding difficult personalities. It's about recognizing a fundamentally different way of processing reality. And what you'll discover might surprise you, because some of these traits might be hiding in your own psychology. The pattern recognition machine. Here's what separates these individuals from the crowd: their brains are exceptional pattern detectors. While most people experience something new with fresh wonder, the hard-to-impress person immediately spots the familiar blueprint underneath. You show them a revolutionary new app. They see the same interface mechanics they've encountered dozens of times before. A trending restaurant. They recognize the formula: industrial decor, small plates, high prices. A viral success story. They've heard 5 variations of it this year alone. This isn't pessimism, it's cognitive efficiency taken to an extreme. Their minds automatically categorize, compare, and contextualize every input against a vast internal database of previous experiences. Where others see novelty, they see repetition with slight variations. Psychologists call this schematic processing, the brain's tendency to fit new information into existing mental frameworks. For most people, this happens selectively. But for those who are hard to impress, it's always on, running constantly in the background like an automated pattern-matching algorithm. The result? They develop what researchers term novelty fatigue. Their threshold for genuine surprise keeps rising because their brain has already cataloged so many similar experiences. What impresses a pattern recognition machine isn't just something good, it has to be genuinely unprecedented. The standards paradox. People who are hard to impress live with an invisible burden: extraordinarily high internal standards. But here's the paradox: these standards don't come from arrogance. They come from something much more complex. Imagine your mind as a museum curator who's spent years studying masterpieces. After you've seen Michelangelo's work up close, a decent sculpture just doesn't create the same response. It's not that the decent sculpture is bad, your reference point has simply shifted permanently upward. This is exactly what happens to hard-to-impress individuals, except it applies to everything. They've mentally consumed so much information, experienced so many things, or thought so deeply about various subjects that their baseline for impressive has fundamentally changed. An interesting fact must be truly remarkable. A good performance must be exceptional. Competence must border on mastery. What others perceive as cold criticism is often just honest calibration. When they say something is fine, they mean it objectively: it meets standards, but doesn't exceed them. The problem is that most people use fine as a diplomatic way of expressing disappointment, creating a communication gap. Research in psychology shows that people with high expertise in any domain naturally develop elevated standards. A professional chef can't enjoy a mediocre meal the way others can. A trained musician hears flaws others miss. Hard-to-impress people have essentially developed this expertise sensitivity across multiple domains simultaneously. The emotional conservation principle. Here's a truth most people don't recognize: being hard to impress isn't about lacking emotions, it's about conserving them strategically. Think of emotional responses like a limited energy resource. Most people spend their enthusiasm freely, expressing excitement at moderate stimuli throughout the day. But hard-to-impress individuals operate differently. They've learned, consciously or unconsciously, that emotional investment should be reserved for things that truly warrant it. This creates what psychologists call emotional granularity, the ability to distinguish between subtle gradations of feeling. Where most people toggle between excited and not excited, these individuals have developed a sophisticated internal scale, mildly interesting, noteworthy, genuinely impressive, and extraordinarily rare. They've also learned something that takes others decades to understand: not everything deserves your amazement. In a world constantly competing for attention, with clickbait headlines, manufactured outrage, and artificial urgency, conserving your sense of wonder becomes an act of psychological self-defense. There's a protective element here too. When you've been disappointed enough times by things that promised to be amazing but weren't, your brain develops a defensive shield. It's not cynicism, it's pattern-based prediction. Their subdued reactions are partly a guard against potential letdowns. But this emotional conservation comes with a cost. Others often interpret their measured responses as coldness or disinterest, when internally they're simply operating with a different emotional economy. The depth over breadth mindset. While most people experience life horizontally, sampling broadly, moving quickly from one thing to the next, hard-to-impress individuals experience it vertically. They dig deeper rather than spreading wider. Give them a topic, and they won't be satisfied with surface-level understanding. They want to know the mechanisms behind it, the exceptions to the rules, the second and third-order effects. This creates a worldview fundamentally different from those who prefer breadth. When someone tells them, "This restaurant is amazing," their mind immediately asks, "Compared to what? What makes it amazing specifically? The ingredients? The technique? The creativity? The consistency?" They're not trying to be difficult. Their brains genuinely need deeper context to form an assessment. This depth-oriented thinking means they've spent significant time understanding how things actually work beneath the surface. A magician's trick that amazes others leaves them analyzing the methodology. A business success story has them questioning the unseen factors: timing, market conditions, survivorship bias. Psychologically, this relates to what researchers call need for cognition, a personality trait characterized by the tendency to engage in and enjoy effortful thinking. People high in this trait aren't satisfied with simple explanations. They need to understand the complete picture. The consequence? They're rarely impressed by surface-level flash or shallow complexity. What genuinely moves them is when something demonstrates true depth, when the more you examine it, the more impressive it becomes rather than less. The authenticity detector. People who are hard to impress have developed an almost supernatural ability to detect inauthenticity. It's like they're equipped with sensors that ping whenever something doesn't align, when the marketing doesn't match the product, when the image doesn't match the reality, when the claim doesn't match the evidence. This isn't paranoia. It's educated skepticism born from repeatedly seeing behind the curtain. They've learned that most impressive things are carefully curated presentations, not complete realities. They know that social media highlights aren't representative. They understand that success stories often omit crucial details. They recognize that first impressions are usually strategic constructions. In conversations, they can sense when someone is performing rather than being genuine. When enthusiasm feels manufactured rather than authentic. When stories are exaggerated for effect rather than told honestly. This makes them difficult to market to, hard to impress with credentials alone, and nearly impossible to manipulate through social proof. What genuinely impresses them is unguarded authenticity, when someone is competent without needing to advertise it, successful without needing to perform it, intelligent without needing to signal it. They're moved by substance over style, consistency over spectacle, quiet mastery over loud demonstration. Research in social psychology confirms that people with high authenticity detection often score high in trait skepticism and low in gullibility measures. They're not automatically distrustful, but they require evidence before accepting impressive claims at face value. The meaning threshold. Here's the core of why these individuals are so hard to impress: they've developed an elevated threshold for meaning. They don't just ask, "Is this good?" They ask, "Does this matter?" Imagine two people looking at the same achievement. Most see the accomplishment itself and feel impressed. But the hard-to-impress person sees it within a larger context. what did this require? What does it contribute? What makes it significant beyond the obvious? They need to understand the meaning before they can generate admiration. This isn't intellectual snobbery. It's a deep-seated need for significance. They've realized that being impressed by everything means being impressed by nothing. That true appreciation requires discrimination. That meaning doesn't come from quantity of experiences but from quality of understanding. They're often moved by things others overlook, a perfectly executed simple task, a small act of genuine kindness, someone mastering a basic skill with complete dedication. Why? Because they can perceive the meaning embedded in these moments, the discipline required, the character revealed, the principles demonstrated. Conversely, they remain unmoved by things that impress others, expensive possessions, social status markers, viral fame. Not because these things have no value, but because the meaning-to-impression ratio doesn't compute for them. A luxury car is impressive engineering, but owning one? That just requires money, not meaning. Psychological research on sense-making shows that some individuals have a stronger drive to construct meaningful narratives from their experiences. For hard-to-impress people, this sense-making requirement must be satisfied before the emotional response of being impressed can activate. So what does all this mean for understanding these individuals, and possibly yourself? The hidden gift. Being hard to impress is often viewed as a limitation, a personality flaw that makes someone difficult or negative. But there's a hidden gift in this way of seeing the world that deserves recognition. These individuals serve as reality anchors in a world increasingly characterized by hype, exaggeration, and manufactured amazement. While others get swept up in trends and temporary excitements, they maintain perspective. They remember that most revolutionary things aren't. That most once-in-a-lifetime opportunities happen regularly. That genuine excellence is rare precisely because most things are just good enough variations on existing templates. Their high standards push others toward actual excellence rather than performed excellence. Their authenticity detection keeps conversations real. Their meaning-seeking behavior asks the important questions that others skip past in their rush to be impressed. But perhaps most importantly, when someone who's genuinely hard to impress actually expresses admiration, you know it's real. Their praise carries weight because it's been earned against difficult criteria. Their enthusiasm, when it emerges, is authentic because it can't be easily triggered. If you recognize these patterns in yourself, understand this: you're not broken or overly critical. You've simply developed a more filtered way of processing the world. The key is finding balance, maintaining your standards while remaining open to being surprised. Protecting your sense of wonder while still experiencing it when something truly warrants it. And if someone in your life is hard to impress, remember, their muted reactions aren't about you. They're about a mind that's seen patterns everywhere, that's calibrated to different standards, that's searching for depth and meaning and authenticity in a world full of surface-level impressions. People who are hard to impress see the world through a lens of patterns, elevated standards, emotional conservation, depth-seeking, authenticity detection, and meaning-making. They're not trying to be difficult, they're responding honestly to a world they perceive differently than most. The next time you encounter someone whose reaction seems disproportionately subdued, consider what's happening beneath the surface. You might be witnessing not coldness, but a mind processing at a different depth. Not negativity, but calibrated assessment. Not absence of feeling, but conservation of wonder for things that truly deserve it. Understanding this mindset doesn't just help you navigate relationships with hard-to-impress people, it might help you understand parts of yourself you never fully recognized. Because in small ways, we're all becoming harder to impress in our specialized domains. The question is whether we'll use that lens to close ourselves off or to appreciate excellence more deeply when we finally encounter it.